Good morning. Myself, Kritika, Assistant Professor, Department of Civil Engineering, BICA, going to handle you the subject Building Material and Testing Method. Its subject code is U18PCCE404. So topic which I'm going to cover is Introduction to Engineering Materials. So under this, we'll talk about the classifications of engineering materials and we'll see about bricks in today's lecture. So classification of engineering materials. How the engineering materials are classified? Metals, plastics, ceramics, and composites. So in metals, it can be subdivided into ferrous and non-ferrous, whereas in plastic, it can be divided into thermoset and thermoplastic. So later on, we'll discuss about ceramics and composites. Composite, we will discuss about fiber reinforced, plain fibers, everything. We'll discuss about all those things in composites. Metals and non-ferrous metal. So these are the common engineering materials and it is normally classified as metals and non-metals. What is metal? So metals may conveniently divided into ferrous and non-ferrous metal. So ferrous metals will come as cast iron, wrought iron and steel. So nowadays everyone will be aware of the steel. So steel is extracted from the iron ore. So some of the important non-ferrous metal used in engineering design are light metal groups such as aluminium and its alloys, magnesium and manganese alloys. Where can we see aluminium in our building sites? We can see in the panel, door, windows. It's in very light in weight and its ductility will be very strong. So we will be seeing it in the windows, doors, frame, everything in aluminium. Then copper-based alloys. Next, white metal groups such as nickel, silver, white bearing metals. So as of in this slide, here we talk about the metals and non-ferrous metals. So metals is nothing but cast iron, wrought iron and steel. Whereas some non-ferrous metal, what all the things will come? Aluminium alloys, magnesium and manganese alloy, copper-based alloys and white metal groups such as nickel, silver and white bearing metal. Here non-metals will be discussing. Non-metallic materials are also used in engineering practice due to principally their low cost, flexibility and resistant to heat and electricity. Though there are many suitable non-metal, the following are important. We will see about timber. So non-metal is also used in engineering practice because it is very low in cost and its flexibility and resistance is very more. So timber, as we all know, it is very relatively low cost material and bad conductor of heat and electricity. It has also good elastic and frictional properties and it is widely used in foundry patterns and as water lubricated bearings. So timbers are used there. Leather. This is widely used in engineering for its flexibility and wear resistant. It is widely used for belt drives, washers and such other applications. So belt drives in the sense to run a pulley or whatever it may be, the leathers are used there. Rubber, it has high bulk modulus and it is used for drive elements, sealing, vibration, isolation and similar application. Plastics are synthetic materials, so which can be molded into desired shape under pressure with or without application of heat. So plastic generally we know thermoset and thermoset plastics. So these are now extensively used in various industrial applications for their corrosion resistant, dimensional stability and relatively low cost. So as I already told, thermoset and thermoplastic. So thermoset plastics are formed under heat and pressure. So how it will be, it initially soften. While we are increasing our heat and pressure, it will harden. So this result in hardening of material. So these plastic cannot be deformed or remolded again under heat and pressure. So initially thermoset will be softened, while then applying heat and pressure, it will harden. The material will get hardened. So again, it cannot retain its original shape. Whereas thermoplastic, it's vice versa. It won't hard with heat and pressure. While cooling, it will get hardened and it can be remolded in any desired shape. That is called thermoplastic. So some example of thermosetting will be bakelite, phenol furfural, epoxy resin, phenolic resin. Whereas thermoplastic, cellulose nitrate, polythene, polyvinyl acetate, polyvinyl chloride, PVC, as we call PVC. So this is the example. So here we generally see the applications of some common thermoplastic. So here in this tabulation has described the material name, its characteristic and its application, where it is used. Okay. So polyethylene, chemically resistant, tough, low friction, low friction coefficient and low strength, that is polyethylene material. And its application we are using in flexible bottle, toys, ice trays, film wrapping material, etc. Polyamide, that is called nylon. It has good strength and toughness, abrasion resistant, liquid absorber, low friction coefficient. So that is the material of polyamide, that is nylon. It is used in bearings, gears, bushings and jacketing for wires and cables. Fluorocarbon, that is Teflon, chemically inert, excellent electrical properties, relatively weak. That is Teflon. So that is anti-corrosive seal, chemical pipes and walls, bearings, anti-aggressive coatings, high temperature electronic parts. So these are the few applications where we can see Teflon. Polyester, tough plastic film, excellent fatigue and tear strength, corrosion resistant. Whereas we can see it in recording tapes, clothing, automotive tire cords, beverage containers. So vinyl, low cost general purpose material, rigid and it can be made flexible. Though it is rigid, we can make vinyl a flexible material. So we can see it is in floor coverings, pipes, electrical wire insulation, garden hose, for phonograph records. Like we have vinyl flooring for construction sites, like vinyl flooring they'll put. So it will be hard, but it will also flexible one. Polystyrene, excellent electrical properties and optical clarity, good thermal and dimensional stability. Here, its application is volatile, battery cases, toys, lighting panels and housing appliances. So these are the application of some thermoplastic. Here we'll see about thermoset. Epoxy, that is also called araldite, phenolic bakelite, polyester, aeropol. So for epoxy, it has excellent mechanical property and corrosion resistant, good electrical property, good adhesion and dimensional stability. Applications is electrical moldings, sinks, adhesives, protective coating, fiber reinforced plastics and laminates. Where phenolic, that is called bakelite, excellent thermal stability, that is up to greater than 150 degrees Celsius, it can withstand its thermal stability. It's inexpensive and it can be compounded with many resin. It can be mixed with or it can perform along with many types of resin. Motor housings, telephones, auto distributors, electrical fixtures. So these are the applications of phenolic, that is called bakelite. Polyester, that is called aeropol. Excellent electrical properties, low cost, and it can be formulated for room or high temperature, often fiber reinforced. So it is generally seen in helmet, fiberglass boats, body components, chair fans. So up to this, we have taught about metals, that is ferrous and non-ferrous we covered, and about plastic, thermoset and thermoplastic we have covered. From now, we move to ceramic. Ceramic material, refractory material, advanced ceramic, abrasive, glass ceramic we'll be seeing about. So what is ceramic? First, we'll see about the refractory material, that is called zirconia. It has extremely high temperature. That's nothing. That is nothing but zinc and carbon. It also used in some very severe temperature condition, but cannot be used in oxygen environment as they will oxidize and burn. Abrasive ceramic. Abrasives are used in cutting and grinding tools. In diamond cutting, they'll generally use this abrasive ceramic. It is natural and synthetic, and it are also used as abrasive, tough, relatively expensive. Industrial diamonds are hard and thermally conductive. Diamonds unsuitable as gemstone are used as industrial diamond, which we generally know that can't be used as industrial diamond. That is, which cannot be used as a gemstone, it will be used as industrial diamond. Common abrasive they have mentioned, that is SiC, WC, Al2O3, aluminous oxide and silica sand, either bonded to a grinding wheel or made into a powder and used with a cloth of paper. Advanced ceramic. It can be seen in automobile engine parts. So operate at a high temperature. It has high efficiency and low frictional loss. Operate without a cooling system. Lower weights than current engines. So few disadvantages. Ceramic materials are brittle, difficult to remove internal voids that weaken the structure. Ceramic pots are difficult to form and machine potential materials. Refractory material. Refractory means it retains its strength at high temperature. that is greater than 500 degrees Celsius, must be chemically and physically stable at high temperature, needed to be resistant to thermal shock, and it should be chemically inert, and it has specific ranges of thermal conductivity and thermal expansion. It is also used in linings for furnaces, kilns, incinerators, crucibles, and reactors. Aluminium oxide, that is called alumina, silicon oxide, silica, calcium oxide, lime, magnesium oxide, magnesia, and fireclays are used to manufacture refractory materials. Composites, we are done with ceramic and we are moving into composite. A material system composed of two or more physically distinct phases whose combination produces aggregate properties that are different from those of its constituents. So example, cemented carbides, plastic molding compound containing fillers, rubber mixed with carbon black, wood, a natural composite as distinguished from a synthesized composite. So as of composites, it's nothing but mixture of any two or three elements together and performing the need. So why composites are important? So composites can be very strong and stiff, yet very light in weight. So ratios of strength to weight and stiffness to weight are several times greater than steel or aluminium. So it is very strong, and it is also, the material is also very stiff, but overall weight is very light. So the strength to weight and stiffness to weight will be greater than steel and aluminium. Fatigue properties are generally better than for common engineering metals. Toughness is often greater too. So composites can be designed that do not corrode like steel. So we can design our own composites, right? But it will be designed that which is non-corrosive in nature. So possible to achieve combinations of properties not attainable with metals, ceramic, or polymers alone. Disadvantages and limitations of composite material. So properties of many important composites are anisotropic. The properties differ depending on the direction in which they are measured. This may be an advantage or a disadvantage. So we can take it as either an advantage or disadvantage. So many of the polymer-based composites are subjected to attack by chemicals or solvent, just as the polymer themselves are susceptible to attack. Composite material are generally expensive. Manufacturing method for shaping composite material are often slow and costly. So it is expensive, and the procedure for making is very slow and it is costly. So classification, how the composites can be classified. It can be classified as particle reinforced, fiber reinforced, or structural. Under particle reinforced, it will be large particle or dispersion strengthened. Under fiber reinforced, it will be continuous, that is aligned or discontinuous short. Aligned, randomly oriented. Structural, laminate or sandwich panels. Here it is, you can see easily. The first diagram shows the aligned and continuous fibers in longitudinal direction. So that will be obviously strongest and anisotropic. Whereas discontinuous fibers are shown, both it has aligned and random, but it will be weaker and isotropic. So that is the fiber element. So up to this slide, we have talked about what all the things we covered. We covered about the ferrous metals, non-ferrous metal. Then we talked about plastic, thermoset and thermoplastic. After that, we talked about ceramic, abrasive, everything. And then we finally came to the fiber, that is composite material. So after this, we'll move to bricks. What is brick? As we all know, brick is the structural element of the building. Yes. So bricks are structural unit of rectangular shape and convenient size, are made of suitable clay by the process of molding, drying and burning. So it is a structural unit. It will be in rectangular shape and the size is convenient. We can modify the size based on our need, and it is made up of a clay by the process of molding, drying and burning. Since long, bricks are believed to have been used by the people of ancient civilization. This has been established beyond doubt from the excavation of prehistoric sites like Indus Valley civilization at Mohenjo-daro and Harappa. Like bricks are not generated in this era. It can be seen in the ancient civilization itself. The best example is Mohenjo-daro, that is Indus Valley civilization at Mohenjo-daro and Harappa. Bricks are used there. So bricks are the most favored structural unit used for construction in modern day world around the globe. Advantages of using brick. It is easy availability of clay, and we know that its construction method, right? Ready to use size, shape and handling, and its cost. All the above factors combined together go in favor of brick to make them a very convenient material. Usage of brick, no, the laborers will, almost all the laborers is know how to use the brick compared to the other structural unit. So that's why its construction method is also known to everyone, and its size, shape and handling is very easy. Cost is also affordable. Composition and selection of brick earth. Earth of specific characteristics are used for manufacturing good bricks. Good brick earth should have the following components. So we should select the brick earth based on certain composition. So we'll be seeing it now. Alumina. So a good brick earth should have 20 to 30% of alumina. It gives required plasticity to the brick earth in the molding stage, that is in wet condition. So a good brick generally should have 20 to 30%. Alumina content in brick earth should not be more than 30% because it makes the earth more plastic. Bricks made of such earth shrink on drying and crack may appear on molded brick. So if the alumina is exceeding 30%, what will happen? The crack will form while we are drying it, right? So that's not good condition. So however, if percentage of alumina is less than 20%, molding of brick to proper shape would become difficult. So it should, alumina should not go less than 20 and greater than 30. If it grows greater than 30, it will crack. If it comes less than 20, the molding of bricks to the proper shape will become difficult. Silica. The percentage of silica in good brick earth should be 50 to 60. Silica and brick earth may be present as a constituent of clay, minerals, or as free silica in the form of sand or quartz. So its percentage should be 50 to 60. Desired percentage of silica in clay imparts or hardens and strength to the brick. So silica, what's the purpose of adding silica in brick? It gives hardness and strength to the brick. Silica gives resistance against shrinkage and durability of brick to the weather. However, if percentage of silica are higher, molding become difficult. So if we are going beyond 60%, molding will become difficult, and such bricks are found to be quite brittle and porous. It will break. Iron oxide. A small amount of iron oxide reduces the softening temperature and makes the fusion of various constituents of clay possible at lower temperature. So we saw first alumina, that is 20 to 30%. Next we got silica, it is 50 to 60%. Now we are seeing iron oxide, that is 4 to 6%. So it reduces the softening temperature and makes the fusion of various constituents of clay possible at low temperature. It also gives characteristic red color to the bricks. Okay, so adding iron oxide in the brick gives you the color. So however, excess of iron oxide makes the brick too soft during burning, which causes deformation of shape and size of the brick. So the color also becomes darker and hence not appealing. Lime. Presence of lime makes burning and hardening quicker. Lime should be present in finely powdered form and thoroughly dispersed. It should be mixed properly. So slaking or disintegration may take place due to presence of lime in the form of nodules or lumps. So undesirable or harmful components. The brick earth should ideally free from following harmful components: lime nodules, organic matter and vegetable roots, sulfides and sulfates, alkali salts, pebbles of stone and gravel. So these are the brick earth should ideally free from. Brick making will be seeing like how the brick is shaped. So everything, preparation of brick earth, molding of bricks, then we have to dry it and burn it. So preparation of brick earth. The site with suitable soil suitable for manufacture of brick is selected. After selection of site, the top, that is 15 to 20 centimeter layer overburden is removed to clear off harmful undesirable ingredients such as harmful like any vegetation, pebbles or any other organic matter. So it has to be removed up to 20 centimeter layer. The earth below that layer is dug out and spread on the ground and exposed to atmosphere for a period of about 2 weeks. So below 20 layer, it has to be dug out and spread on the ground so that it will be exposed to the sun for 2 weeks. Sometimes additional amount of sand or lime, etc. are also mixed with that soil depending on the requirement. So this complete process, digging of the earth thus it is all called as weathering. After weathering, earth is then ground thoroughly to break the lumps if any present in it. So we have to break the lumps. If any lump modules are present, we have to break it. The weathered earth is thoroughly mixed with the sand, lime added to it. The process is known as blending. Once it is exposed to the sun for 2 weeks, we have to mix it with sand and lime, and that process and it has to be thoroughly mixed, and that process is called blending. The blended earth is then spread out on a platform to the desired amount of water is added to the mixture, and the mixture is then kneaded thoroughly so as to form a homogeneous and plastic mix. It has to be formed as a one unit and it should be plastic mix. Okay, so this process is known as tempering. Generally, 25 to 30% of water is sufficient to make the mixture plastic enough for molding. The amount of water added depends on the type of molding. So for large scale manufacture of bricks, pug mill is used for kneading of clay. So mixing it to hand will take huge time, and the brick produced will be in a small number. So for manufacture of bricks at large, we can use pug mill. It consists of a conical upright steel cylinder covered at, we'll see it in the next slide. So it consists of a conical upright steel cylinder covered at the top and with the hole at the bottom. So this figure shows a typical pug mill. Here you can see the pug mill has been shown. So the figure shows a typical pug mill. It is 2 to 3 meter in height and part of which is buried with under the ground. So the top diameter is slightly more than the bottom diameter. A central rotating vertical shaft pivoted at the base, which can be rotated with the help of long arm driven mechanically or manually. So the central shaft is attached with horizontal blade carrying knives. Here you can see. So it has been covered with the iron tube and arm is provided. The shaft is the central thing. So knives are attached with that arm itself. So once if you put the clay into it, it will rotate it mechanically. So seasoned clay and water are added from the opening of the top. So the rotation of the shaft and its churning effect on the clay water mixture produce mud of required plasticity. The mud is then taken out from the hole at the base of molding. So we can take it from bottom. Now molding of brick. The bricks mold can be done by hand molding and machine molding. The process of making green bricks of proper shape and size from the tempered clay is known as molding. So making the brick into the proper shape is called molding. Molding of brick is carried out with the help of a mold. A mold is made of either wood or steel. So a wooden mold is fitted with iron plate at edges to make it strong. The inside dimension of the mold are generally 8 to 10% larger than the size of the brick. So this is mainly used to allow the shrinkage of brick during drying. Hand molding, machine molding. In this method, molding of brick from tempered clay is done by using skilled manpower. The clay is invariably kept soft so that it can be given desired shape. The water content of the mud is generally 18 to 25% than those used for machine molding. This method is further divided into two types depending on the fact that whether the molding is done on the ground. So hand molding can be done in ground or table molding. Here you can say brick mold, dimension with 550 mm into 110 mm depth, and the width will be 110 mm. Whereas in cutting wire they have shown, here mold line is going on and the stack board is shown with frog. Ground molding. The mold is dipped in water or sprinkled with sand in order to avoid sticking of the green mud. Green mud is wet mud to the inner side of the mold. A lump of is carefully dashed into the mold by hand. It should be ensured that the clay reaches to the side and corner of the mold. Surplus mud, if any, is removed with the help of strike or cutting edge. The mold is then lifted with sudden jerk, leaving behind the molded brick on the ground sprinkled with sand. If it is in table molding, in this process, all the molding operations are carried out by skilled worker on a specially designed table. The molded bricks are transported to the drying place with the help of pallet boards. So this process is similar to pallet molding on the ground. The mold is placed over the stock board and some sand is sprinkled on the inside surface of the mold. A lump of mud is then carefully pushed into the mold, pressed thoroughly and skillfully such that mud reaches to the sides and corner of the mold. The surplus mud is then cut away with the cutting edge. Pallet is placed over the mold and the molded brick is transferred to the pallet by turning the mold over it. The brick is transported to drying out. The same process which will carry out on the table will lead to table molding. Here you can see in table molding, you have water bowl, you have clay, you have a mold, you have a stacked board, cutting wire and bricks on pallet which will be passed to the dry yard. So good quality bricks are produced in table molding. However, the operation process is slow and hence the cost of production is slightly higher in table molding. The enough to accommodate all the accessories required for molding. In the table, you can access everything. Machine molding. Machine molding is useful for large scale manufacturing of bricks. About 2000 bricks can be molded by a machine per day. That makes a huge difference by table molding and machine molding. It gives bricks of uniform quality and it's cheaper in the long run. Depending on the water content of clay, two methods of machine, stiff mud and dry process. Stiff mud is nothing but very stiff or plastic clay is used for molding. Only a small quantity, that is about 8 to 12% of water is added during tempering in pug mill. So the water percent added in the pug mill will be very less. The clay is made to pass under pressure through a molding machine. The pressed mud comes out through the orifice, which gives the mud a continuous ribbon shape of given height and depth. Then it is cutted into, so outside of the pug mill, it will come as a orifice, come out through the orifice. Okay. So this is cut into desired length by means of cutting wire. The cut bricks are then taken away for drying. So this is the stiff mill where you can see a warm gear type molding machine comprises the following. Feeding chamber is there. It should be provided with warm gear to apply pressure. So after that, hopper to receive clay mix from pug mill. So the clay mix will be taken from pug mill through hopper. Fixed orifice provided in the narrow front end. So conveyor belt on set of rollers. Cutting wire is placed so that it is cutted into the desired shape. Dry process. In this type of molding, very small quantity of water, that is maximum of 10% of water is added during tempering. So the clay is then fed through the hopper into the mold and it is compressed by a plunger with a pressure of about 50 to 150 kg per centimeter square. Such a pressure is sufficient enough to convert the loose damp clay mass into a dense, very compact brick unit, which is then removed from the mold. So we are applying the more pressure. So that pressure making the loose damp clay mass into a dense mass. So the metal mold is heated during the molding process to avoid sticking of clay. So the metal is also getting heated, so it won't get stick into the mold. The clay won't stick into the mold. Bricks from such molding machines can be directly taken for burning. The bricks thus manufactured have perfect shapes and size. Here drying, natural drying, artificial drying. So drying is essential before burning to make the green brick strong enough so that they can be handled during stacking. To allow loss of moisture content at a slow rate, because if the bricks are straight away burnt, it will disintegrate and rapid loss of moisture will happen. So what we have to do, we have to dry that brick. The fuel requirement is significantly reduced with reduction of moisture content. Drying can be done with natural or artificial. So in natural, the bricks are dried in the sun in open after molding. Bricks are laid flat sidewise for 2 to 3 days for drying. When the bricks are dry enough to be handled safely, they are carried to the yard for stacking. So drying yards are situated at the higher elevation for draining of rainwater. The bricks are stacked in the drying yard by keeping them at their edges. 8 to 10 bricks are kept in each row of a stack. So bricks are protected from direct exposure of sun while stacking it, and sometimes roofs are also made over drying yard to protect them from heavy rains. Artificial drying is nothing but mechanized brick manufacturing unit where bricks in large scale are required to be dried at a very rapid rate and throughout the year independent of whatever the weather condition it may be, but it has to be dried over a period of year. So artificial drying is carried out in specially designed chamber or tunnels which receive heat from special furnaces built on for the purpose. Here we are talking about the burning. After molding and drying, bricks are burnt either in the clamp or in the kiln. So burning gives more strength to the brick, right? So burning not only imparts strength and also hardness to the bricks, and it also increases its density. You can see the kiln easily. So the bricks are stacked. 2 rows of bricks are stacked and they are, and again one row, again the heat is passing on. So E is nothing but earth cover, B is raw bricks, F is a fuel, and GL is the ground level. So after stacking of ground level, the fuel is applied. So clamps or passboards are temporary working arrangement made for burning bricks. In this method, dry bricks are locally available. Ordinary fuel are stacked together in alternative layers up to a desired height on a properly prepared ground to form the clamp. So the clamp is then plastered with mud from outside for its protection. So we kilns intermittent and continuous kiln. In this kiln, the operation of burning of brick is not continuous, whereas continuous, it is operation of burning of bricks are continuous. Here stages are loading, firing, cooling and unloading. Here loading, preheating, burning, cooling and unloading are carried out continuously. Here, these are the few classification of bricks we have discussed. First class, its characteristics and its uses. First class bricks, well-burned bricks, and it has smooth surface. It will be clean and free from any crack. When two bricks are stuck against each other, the ringing sound is produced. So the compressive strength of first class brick shall not less than 140 kg per centimeter square, and it should absorb more than 20% of water by weight when immersed in water for 24 hours. So when scratched by fingernail, there should be no mark left on the brick. When broken into two bricks, it should show uniform compact structure, show only slight efflorescence. Okay. So uses used in excellent in all types of construction of exterior wall, reinforced concrete work, flooring and wall purpose. Second class, it is well burnt or slightly over burnt, not perfectly rectangular shape, having rough surface. So metallic ringing sound is produced when two bricks are stuck against each other. Compressive strength for first class, we discussed it should not be less than 140 kg per centimeter square, whereas here it should not be less than 70 kg per centimeter square. It should absorb 20% of water, more than 20% of water. It should not absorb more than 20% of water. It also shows only slight efflorescence. It is not free from lumps and cracks. Again, it is also seen in internal walls, not exposed to atmosphere. It should be plastered if used in facing work. These are not used in RB work. So these bricks may be laid in mud and lime mortar. Third class, these bricks are not burnt in clean and are slightly under or over burnt. These are soft and can be easily broken. When stuck against each other, they do not produce ringing sound. It should not absorb more than 25% of water by weight. Efflorescence is moderate. Compressive strength of third class will be up to 35 to 50 kg per centimeter square. It is used in interior construction work and at place of less rainfall. Next one called Jamma or overburnt brick. The brick will be overburnt. It doesn't have any shape and get twisted. It will be dark in color, quite strong in compressive strength, and have compressive strength more than 150 kg per centimeter square, have low porosity and water absorption. The bricks are not used in building construction, used as road metal or in foundation or floor soiling. These are the uses. So these are the qualities of good building blocks. It should have a perfectly rectangular shape, regular surface, and red colored appearance. It should conform to the specified size 19 into 9 into 9 for modular bricks centimeter. It should be perfectly burnt. Proper burning, two bricks are struck against each other. A metallic ringing sound confirm proper burning. Okay. So a good building brick should not absorb water more than 20% of its dry weight when immersed in water for 24 hours. So the compressive strength of the building brick is no case be less than 35 kg per centimeter square. It should leave no mark when scratched by fingernail. A good brick has a uniform color and structure throughout. So efflorescence should be minimum. It shows that salt of alkaline are less. A good brick should be able to resist the effect of weathering agents like temperature variation, rain, frost action, etc. A good brick should have adequate resistance to fire. Ordinary bricks can resist temperature up to 12,000 centigrade.